They mocked me for where I came from. Now they beg for my help. The rain tapped against our tin roof like it was trying to get in. I sat beside Mom's bed, holding her thin hand. At 16, I'd already learned how to change IV bags, give medications, and read the pain in her eyes when she tried to hide it. "Lucy," Mom whispered, her voice barely there. "Promise me you'll be strong when I'm gone." I nodded, fighting back tears. "I will, Mom, but you're not going anywhere." She smiled that smile, the one that knew better. "My sweet girl, you've already been so brave." Our little house in Oak Ridge wasn't much, but it was clean and ours. Dad left when Mom got sick. "Can't handle hospitals," he'd said, like her cancer was an inconvenience to him. So it was just us. Mom teaching me everything she could before time ran out. That night, as the storm picked up outside, Mom's breathing slowed. I held her hand tight, whispering all the things we'd do when she got better, knowing deep down she wouldn't. When her hand went limp in mine, I didn't scream or cry. I just sat there, feeling the world collapse around me. The funeral was small, just some neighbors and Mom's old co-workers from the diner. Mrs. Wilson from next door brought casseroles for days. "Poor thing," I heard her tell someone. "All alone now. What's she gonna do?" What was I going to do? I finished high school somehow, working nights at the Gas and Go to keep our little house. But the bills kept coming, and the loneliness was worse than the empty refrigerator. One morning, nearly 2 years after Mom died, I was sorting through papers at our rickety kitchen table. The electricity bill was stamped with a final notice, and the property tax was overdue. My hands shook as I counted my savings. Not nearly enough. "I can't lose this house," I whispered to the empty room. "It's all I have left of her." That same day, I stopped at Riley's diner where Mom used to work. Marge, the owner, slid a free coffee across the counter. "You look beat, honey." "I'm okay," I lied, staring at the help-wanted ads in the local paper. Marge leaned over. "Try this." She tapped a small ad I'd missed. "Lady I know cleaned houses in San Francisco. Said they pay triple what you'd make here." The ad was simple. Housekeeper needed, live-in position, Harrison Estate, San Francisco, experience preferred. San Francisco? That's 4 hours away. "Sometimes you gotta leave to find what you need," Marge said. "Your mama would want you taken care of." That night, I stood in Mom's bedroom, unchanged since she died. What should I do? I asked the empty room. The silence that answered felt different somehow, like permission. I called the number in the ad the next morning. A woman with a crisp voice answered, "Harrison Estate." "I'm calling about the housekeeper position," I said, my voice shaking. "Do you have experience?" she asked. I thought about the years caring for Mom, keeping our home clean despite everything. "Yes, I do. You'll need references and to come for an interview." I gave her Marge's name and Mrs. Wilson's. "I can come whenever you need me to." She paused. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. sharp." I spent that night packing my life into one suitcase and a backpack. There wasn't much. Some clothes, Mom's photo album, the silver locket with her picture inside. As I locked our little house, I promised I'd find a way to keep it, even from far away. The bus ride to San Francisco was long. I watched the landscape change from small towns to rolling hills to the sudden shock of tall buildings and the gleaming bay. I'd never been to a big city before. Everything seemed to move faster, shine brighter. With directions scribbled on paper, I made my way through the busy streets, finally catching a local bus up into the hills. As we climbed higher, the houses got bigger, set farther apart, hidden behind tall gates. "And this is my stop," I told the driver, checking my paper one more time. He looked at me in the mirror. "Harrison Estate? You working there?" I nodded. "Good luck," he said, and I couldn't tell if he meant it kindly. Standing at the iron gates of Harrison Estate, I felt smaller than I ever had before. Beyond them stretched a driveway lined with perfect trees, leading to what looked more like a castle than a house. My stomach twisted with nerves as I pressed the intercom button. "Lucy Parker," I said, my voice barely audible. "I'm here for the interview." The gates opened silently, and I took my first steps toward a life I couldn't begin to imagine. The driveway seemed to go on forever. With my suitcase handle cutting into my palm, I kept walking, trying not to gawk at the perfectly trimmed hedges and flower beds bursting with colors I'd never seen in Oak Ridge. Fountains sprayed water in graceful arcs. It was like walking into one of those fancy magazines at the doctor's office. As I got closer to the house, mansion, really, I could see it was made of pale stone with huge windows that caught the sunlight. The front door was twice my height, made of dark wood with iron details. Before I could knock, it swung open. A tall woman in a gray dress looked me over, her eyes lingering on my worn shoes and simple clothes. Lucy Parker? I'm Mrs. Winters, the house manager. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the interview opportunity. Follow me. She turned without waiting, her shoes clicking on the marble floor. Inside, the house opened up into a huge entry hall with a staircase that curved up like in the movies. Paintings larger than my bedroom wall hung everywhere. Vases taller than me stood in corners. I concentrated on not tripping or touching anything. You'll leave your belongings here, Mrs. Winters said, pointing to a small alcove. Mr. Thornton will see you in the library. Mr. Thornton? I thought this was Harrison Estate. Her mouth tightened. Harrison Estate is the property name. Mr. Robert Thornton is the owner. You'd do well to remember that. She led me through hallways where every step echoed. We passed rooms filled with furniture that looked too delicate to sit on. Finally, she stopped at a set of double doors and knocked softly. Enter, called a deep voice from inside. Mrs. Winters opened the door and announced, Lucy Parker for the housekeeper position, sir. I stepped into the most beautiful room I'd ever seen. Books covered every wall from floor to ceiling. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, landing on a large desk where a man sat. Robert Thornton wasn't what I expected. His hair was silver gray, but his eyes were dark and alert. He had the kind of face that showed he'd lived a full life. Wrinkles from smiling, deep lines across his forehead. He wasn't young, maybe in his 60s, but he sat straight and strong. Miss Parker, please, sit down. His voice was warm, not at all like Mrs. Winters. I perched on the edge of a leather chair, my hands folded tightly in my lap. You're from Oak Ridge, Mrs. Winters tells me. He looked at a paper on his desk. My application. Yes, sir. All my life. And what brings you to San Francisco? I hesitated. I needed a change, sir, and better opportunities. He studied me for a moment. Mrs. Winters says your references spoke highly of you, though you have no professional household experience. I've been taking care of my own home since I was 14, I said, then added quickly, but I learn fast, sir. Instead of answering, he asked, Have you had breakfast, Miss Parker? The question caught me off guard. No, sir. I caught the early bus. He nodded and pressed a button on his desk. Almost immediately, Mrs. Winters appeared. Please bring some tea and something to eat for Miss Parker. Right away, sir. She closed the door behind her, looking surprised. Now, he continued, tell me about yourself, Lucy. Not what's on this paper, who you are. No one had asked me that in a long time. The words came slowly at first, then faster. I told him about Mom getting sick, about taking care of her and our home, about finishing school while working. I didn't mention Dad leaving or how close I was to losing our house. When I finished, his eyes had softened. That's quite a burden for someone so young. A knock interrupted us, and Mrs. Winters entered with a tray. She set it on a small table beside me. Tea, toast, fruit, and little cakes I'd never seen before. Thank you, Mrs. Winters. That will be all for now. When she left, Mr. Thornton gestured to the tray. Please, eat. I took a small cake, trying not to show how hungry I was. Thank you, sir. The position, he said, requires discretion, attention to detail, and a willingness to learn. This house has been in my late wife's family for generations. I maintain it in her memory. Your wife? I asked before thinking. Catherine passed 5 years ago. He looked toward the window. We had no children. It's just me now, rattling around in this big place with the staff. I nodded, not knowing what to say. I think you'd do well here, Lucy. You have an honest quality about you. That's rare in my experience. He smiled slightly. The position is yours if you want it. I nearly choked on my tea. Really? Just like that? Just like that? Mrs. Winters will show you the ropes? You'll have your own room, meals provided, Sundays off, and a monthly salary. He named a figure that made my eyes widen. That's very generous, sir. It's what the position is worth. He stood, signaling our conversation was over. Welcome to Harrison Estate, Lucy. Mrs. Winters was waiting outside. Her expression was cool when Mr. Thornton told her I'd been hired. I'll show you to your room, she said stiffly. Then we'll go over your duties. My room was small but beautiful, with a window overlooking the gardens. I had my own bathroom, something I'd never had before. The bed had more pillows than I knew what to do with. Uniforms are in the closet, Mrs. Winters said. Change and meet me in the kitchen in 15 minutes. When she left, I sat on the bed, overwhelmed. Everything had happened so fast. I looked out the window at the sprawling gardens and the city beyond. From up here, San Francisco looked magical, the bay sparkling in the distance. I made it, Mom, I whispered. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I made it. My first weeks at Harrison Estate passed in a blur of learning. I scrubbed floors the wrong way, broke a teacup from some dynasty I'd never heard of, and got lost at least twice a day in the endless hallways. Mrs. Winters watched me with narrowed eyes, always quick to point out my mistakes. The other staff kept their distance, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. Country girl won't last a month, I overheard the gardener tell the cook. I cried myself to sleep those first nights, missing home and doubting my decision. But each morning I got up, put on my uniform, and tried again. Mr. Thornton was rarely around during the day, busy with whatever rich men do. But in the evenings, he often sat in the library. Sometimes, when I brought his tea, he'd ask me to stay a moment. Did you enjoy school, Lucy? He asked one evening. Some subjects, sir. I liked reading. What did you read? I felt my cheeks warm. Nothing special, just stories from the school library. He nodded thoughtfully. The next day, I found a book on my bed, a collection of short stories. A note inside read simply, "For your evening hours, R.T." I read that book cover to cover, then found the courage to thank him. I've never owned a new book before. What did you think of the stories? He asked, genuinely interested. I liked the one about the lighthouse keeper best. That began our conversations about books. He'd leave one for me, then ask my thoughts days later. Sometimes I didn't understand them, but he never made me feel stupid when I said so. One afternoon, about 2 months after I arrived, Mrs. Winters handed me a box. Mr. Thornton requests you wear this tonight. You're to accompany him to the opera. Inside was a simple but elegant blue dress. I stared at it in shock. There must be a mistake. Those were his instructions. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Be ready at 7. That evening, dressed in the blue gown that fit perfectly, how did he know my size? I waited nervously in the foyer. Mr. Thornton appeared in a black tuxedo, looking distinguished and somehow younger. Ah, Lucy, the dress suits you. Thank you, sir, but I don't understand why I'm going to the opera. He smiled. Everyone should experience beautiful things. Lucy, music, art, literature, they belong to us all, not just those born into privilege. The Opera House was the most magnificent building I'd ever entered. Crystal chandeliers hung from painted ceilings. Women in jewels and men in tuxedos filled the lobby, their voices creating a buzz of excitement. I felt their stares as we walked in, curious, judgmental. An older woman in diamonds actually gasped when Mr. Thornton introduced me. Your housekeeper? She said, her eyebrows nearly reaching her hairline. My guest, he corrected firmly. Our seats were in a private box. As the lights dimmed and the music began, I forgot about the stares and whispers. The voices of the singers filled the huge space, telling a story of love and loss in a language I didn't understand but somehow felt in my heart. What do you think? Mr. Thornton whispered during intermission. I struggled to find words. It makes me feel like there's so much more to the world than I ever knew. He nodded. Pleased? Exactly. That was the first of many outings. We visited art galleries where he taught me about paintings. We attended symphony concerts where the music made me cry. We went to plays, museums, even ballet. Each time, I felt the stares and heard the whispers, but they bothered me less and less. Between outings, our conversations grew deeper. He told me about his wife, Catherine, how they'd met in college, how she'd loved this house and its gardens. I shared stories about Mom, about our small-town life, about dreams I'd never told anyone. You have a natural appreciation for beauty, Lucy, he said one evening as we sat in the garden. Many people with every advantage never develop that. I feel like I'm catching up on everything I missed. You're not catching up, he corrected gently. You're discovering on your own terms. 6 months into my time at Harrison Estate, I barely recognized myself. My hands were still rough from work, but I stood straighter. I could name the artists whose paintings hung in the main hall. I knew which fork to use at dinner. I'd read more books than in all my school years combined. Mrs. Winters no longer watched me like I might steal the silver. The other staff had moved from suspicion to a cautious acceptance. Only when visitors came did I feel the old judgment, the silent question. What is she doing here? One evening, Mr. Thornton announced we were attending a charity gala at the art museum. There will be many important people there, he warned. Society can be cruel to those it sees as outsiders. I'm used to it by now, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. He studied me for a moment. You've changed, Lucy. Is that good or bad? Neither. You're still the same honest young woman who walked through my door. You've just grown into yourself. The night of the gala, he presented me with a small velvet box. Inside was a simple pearl necklace. Sir, I can't accept this. It was Catherine's. She wore it when she was your age. I think she would approve. I touched the pearls gently. Thank you. I'll be careful with them. They're yours now, Lucy. Not alone. As we drove to the museum, I fingered the pearls at my neck, feeling both honored and terrified. Something was changing between us. Something I couldn't name, but could feel in the air, like the electricity before a storm. The charity gala was bigger than any event I'd attended with Mr. Thornton before. The museum's grand hall was transformed with flowers and lights, and hundreds of San Francisco's wealthiest citizens mingled, their jewelry catching the light with every movement. Robert, there you are! A tall woman in a red dress approached us, air-kissing Mr. Thornton's cheeks. Her eyes slid to me, narrowing slightly. And who is this? Margaret, this is Lucy Parker. Lucy, Margaret Chambers, chairwoman of the museum board. I extended my hand. It's nice to meet you. She barely touched my fingers before letting go. How do you know Robert? Before I could answer, Mr. Thornton said, Lucy is a dear friend who shares my appreciation for the arts. Margaret's eyebrows rose. How unconventional. Robert always did like to surprise us. Throughout the evening, this scene repeated with slight variations. Women would approach, assess me with cool eyes, then dismiss me with fake smiles. Men would look me up and down, sometimes in ways that made my skin crawl. I was at the refreshment table when I overheard two women talking. It's obscene, really. She must be half his age. Younger? I heard she was the housekeeper. Can you imagine? Well, lonely old men are easy targets for pretty young things from nowhere. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear, to run back to the safety of my small room at Harrison Estate. Instead, I straightened my spine, remembering Mr. Thornton's words, "You belong anywhere you choose to be." As I turned to walk away, I nearly collided with a woman I hadn't seen before. She was beautiful, maybe 40, with sharp features and perfectly styled blonde hair. "So you're the latest project," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Excuse me? Don't play innocent. Uncle Robert's charity case." She looked me over like I was something stuck to her shoe. "I'm Rebecca Thornton, his niece." I didn't know he had a niece. "It's nice to meet you, Ms. Thornton." "It's Mrs. Blackwell, actually, though I keep the family name professionally." She sipped her champagne. "Let me save us both time. Whatever you're after, money, status, a father figure, you won't get it. Uncle Robert may be temporarily charmed by your simplicity, but it won't last." I felt the room spinning. "I'm not after anything." She laughed, a cold sound that turned heads nearby. "Of course you are. Girls like you always are." Mr. Thornton appeared at my side, his expression darkening when he saw Rebecca. "I see you've met my niece." "Yes, we were just getting acquainted," Rebecca said sweetly. "Lucy, would you excuse us? I need to speak with Rebecca privately." I nodded, grateful for the escape. I made my way to a quiet corner, trying to calm my racing heart. After a few minutes, I saw them across the room. Mr. Thornton looked angry, his voice low but intense. Rebecca seemed unmoved, her perfect posture never wavering. On the drive home, Mr. Thornton was unusually quiet. "I didn't know you had a niece," I finally said. He sighed. "Rebecca is my late brother's daughter. We're not close. She lives in New York, running the East Coast branch of the family business. She doesn't like me. Rebecca doesn't like anyone who threatens her position as my only family." He looked out the window. "I apologize for her behavior. It's not your fault." "Perhaps it is. I've sheltered you from certain realities." He turned to face me. "There will be talk, Lucy, about you, about me, about us. People like Rebecca will try to make you feel small, unworthy. They already do." His hand covered mine. "You must never believe them." In the days that followed, Rebecca's visit cast a shadow. She came to the estate frequently, always arriving when Mr. Thornton was out. She would walk through the rooms, commenting on everything I did wrong. "Those books need to be alphabetical," she'd say, or, "that silver isn't polished properly." I tried to avoid her, but she seemed to find me no matter where I worked. One afternoon, she cornered me in the library. "How long do you think this will last?" she asked, running her finger along a shelf. "Uncle Robert's fascination with molding you into something presentable," I continued, dusting. "Mr. Thornton has been kind to me. That's all." She laughed. "Kind? Is that what you call it? He buys you clothes, takes you to the opera, parades you around San Francisco society like some Cinderella story? It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Please, enlighten me." I put down my cloth. "He treats me like a person with value, like someone worth knowing." Something flickered in her eyes. Hurt, maybe, or envy. It was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "You're delusional," she said. "When he tires of this game, you'll be back cleaning toilets. That's if you're lucky enough to keep your job at all." That night at dinner, I was quieter than usual. Mr. Thornton noticed. "Has Rebecca been bothering you again?" "No," I lied, then changed my mind. "Yes, she thinks I'm taking advantage of you." He set down his fork. "And what do you think? Sometimes I wonder why you've done so much for me. I'm just a housekeeper from nowhere. You're not just anything, Lucy." His voice was firm. "From the moment you walked in, I saw something in you, a genuine spirit, untouched by cynicism or greed. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" I shook my head. "Everyone wants something from me. Position, money, connections. But not you." He smiled. "You just wanted to talk about the lighthouse keeper in that story." A week later, we attended another charity event. This time, Rebecca was there with friends, a circle of elegant women who watched my every move. As I returned from the ladies' room, I overheard them. "It's like My Fair Lady, except creepier," one said. "Bet she's sleeping with him," another added. Rebecca's voice cut through. "Uncle Robert has always had a weakness for strays. This one's just younger and prettier than usual." They dissolved into laughter, not noticing me standing frozen nearby. When they saw me, the laughter stopped, replaced by smug smiles. I wanted to run, to hide, to go back to Oak Ridge where no one looked at me like I was dirt. Instead, I walked past them with my head high, though my hands trembled. That night, I cried in my room for the first time in months. All the progress I'd made, all the confidence I'd built, it felt like Rebecca and her friends had stripped it away in seconds. A soft knock interrupted my tears. I opened the door to find Mr. Thornton, concern etched on his face. "I saw what happened," he said gently. "May I come in?" We sat by the window, looking out at the garden lights. "Why do they hate me so much?" I asked. "What have I done to them?" "Nothing. That's precisely why," he sighed. "People like Rebecca have built their entire identities around wealth and status. When someone like you comes along, someone genuine, without pretense, it threatens everything they believe about themselves. I don't belong in their world. Perhaps their world doesn't deserve you." He took my hand. "Lucy, I need to tell you something important. Something I've been considering for some time." His serious tone made me nervous. "Are you sending me away?" "Quite the opposite." He squeezed my hand. "I've come to care for you deeply. More than I expected. More than might be proper, given our circumstances." My heart pounded. "I don't understand. I'm an old man compared to you. I know that. But I find myself wanting to protect you, to give you everything you deserve." He paused. "I'd like to ask you to marry me." The world seemed to stop. "Marry you?" "Yes. It would change everything. Your position here, how society sees you. No one could hurt you again." "But why?" "You could marry anyone. I don't want anyone. I want you. Your honesty, your kindness, your strength." He smiled sadly. "I understand if you need time to think, or if your answer is no." I stared at our joined hands, my mind racing. Marriage had never been part of my plan, and yet, the talk would be worse, I whispered. "They'd say I trapped you." "Let them talk. We would know the truth." I looked into his eyes and saw no pity, no charity, only genuine affection and hope. "I need time," I said finally. He nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need." After he left, I stood at the window for hours, watching the fog roll in over San Francisco. Everything was about to change again, and this time, the choice was entirely mine. 3 days after Mr. Thornton proposed, I still hadn't given him an answer. Every time I saw him across the dinner table or passed him in the hallway, the question hung between us, unspoken but impossible to ignore. One morning, Mrs. Winters knocked on my door. "Mr. Thornton would like you to join him for breakfast on the terrace. I found him reading the newspaper, a half-eaten piece of toast on his plate. When he saw me, he folded the paper and stood. Lucy, thank you for coming. Good morning, sir. He gestured to the chair across from him. I think, given our recent conversation, you might call me Robert. That would take some getting used to. A small smile touched his lips. Many things would. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The morning sun warmed the terrace, and birds chirped in the garden below. I've been thinking about your proposal, I finally said, and I've been thinking I should explain myself better. He set down his coffee cup. There's something I haven't told you. My stomach dropped. What is it? I had some tests done last month. My doctor found... He paused, choosing his words carefully. An issue with my heart. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to make me consider the future. You're sick. My voice cracked. Let's say I'm reminded of my mortality. He reached across the table for my hand. Lucy, I want to be clear. My proposal wasn't out of pity or obligation. These months with you have brought joy back into my life. I find myself looking forward to our conversations, our outings, even just seeing you around the house. But why marriage? Why not just friendship? Because I want to protect you. Because I want to give you the security you deserve. His eyes held mine. And selfishly. Because I want whatever time I have left to be filled with your light. Tears welled in my eyes. How long? The doctors say with proper care, I could have many good years ahead. He squeezed my hand. But nothing is guaranteed for any of us. I thought of Mom, how quickly she'd slipped away, how unfair life could be. I need you to understand something, he continued. If you say yes, everything I have becomes yours. If you say no, you still have a home here as long as you wish. Your answer won't change how I care for you. In that moment, looking at his kind face across the breakfast table, I realized something that had been growing inside me for months. I cared for Robert, not as an employer or a father figure, but as the person who had seen value in me when no one else did. Yes, I said softly. His eyes widened. Yes, I'll marry you, Robert. The name felt strange on my tongue, but right somehow. Not for your money or your protection, but because I care about you too. 2 weeks later, we were married in the garden at Harrison Estate. It was a small ceremony, just us, a judge, and a few trusted staff members as witnesses. I wore a simple white dress, and Robert had the gardeners fill the pergola with my favorite flowers. I, Robert James Thornton, take you, Lucy Ann Parker, to be my lawfully wedded wife. As we exchanged vows, I thought of how far I'd come from that little house in Oak Ridge. Mom would hardly recognize my life now, but I liked to think she'd recognize my heart. Still the same, just braver. The news broke the next day in the society pages. Widower Robert Thornton weds former housekeeper in secret ceremony. The phone rang constantly. Mrs. Winters screened the calls, her expression growing grimmer with each one. Reporters? She explained, and so-called friends wanting details. By afternoon, Rebecca had arrived, storming past Mrs. Winters into the library where Robert and I were reading. Have you completely lost your mind? She slapped a newspaper down on the table. The headline blared, May-December. Romance? Billionaire weds staff. Robert remained calm. Hello, Rebecca. I see you've heard our news. News? It's a scandal. The board members are calling me non-stop. The Thornton name is becoming a joke. I married the woman I love. There's nothing scandalous about that. Rebecca turned to me, her eyes blazing. You must be thrilled with yourself. From cleaning toilets to Mrs. Thornton in less than a year. Well played. I stood my ground. I didn't marry Robert for his name or his money. Oh, spare me. She turned back to her uncle. She'll take you for everything. You realize that, don't you? She's probably already planning how to spend her inheritance. Robert's voice turned cold. That's enough, Rebecca. I won't have you speak to my wife that way in our home. Your home? It was Aunt Catherine's family home first. What would she think of you giving it to... Catherine would have adored Lucy, Robert interrupted. She had an excellent judge of character. Rebecca's face flushed red. You'll regret this, both of you. She grabbed her purse. When she shows her true colors, don't come crying to me. After she stormed out, Robert sighed heavily. I'm sorry, Lucy. That won't be the last of it. He was right. The next weeks brought more headlines, each more hurtful than the last. Gold digger strikes pay dirt, from maid to millionaire, Thornton fortune in jeopardy. Photographers camped outside our gates. Old friends of Robert's stopped calling. At the few events we attended, conversations would stop when we entered a room. One evening, I found Robert in the library, looking tired. "Maybe we should have waited," I said. "Given people time to get used to the idea?" He shook his head. "Time only matters if you have plenty of it." He patted the sofa beside him. "Come sit with me." I curled up next to him, and he put his arm around me. "People will talk, Lucy. Let them. We know the truth." "And what is the truth?" He kissed the top of my head. "That an old man got very lucky, very late in life. The first year of our marriage was the happiest of my life." Despite the headlines and gossip, inside Harrison Estate, we created our own world. Robert showed me how to manage household accounts. We traveled to places I'd only seen in books: New York, London, Paris. Each night, we'd read together in the library, comfortable in silence or deep in conversation. But as autumn came, I noticed changes. Robert tired more easily. His morning walks in the garden grew shorter. Sometimes, he'd stop mid-sentence, pressing his hand to his chest until the pain passed. "It's nothing," he'd insist. "Just age catching up with me." I wasn't fooled. I'd seen this before with Mom: the brave face, the hidden winces, the pills taken when they thought no one was looking. One morning, I woke to find Robert already dressed, sitting at the edge of our bed. "I think it's time I showed you something," he said. In his office, he unlocked a cabinet I'd never seen opened. Inside were folders, each labeled neatly: Estate, Investments, Thornton Industries, Will and Testament. "Robert, what is this?" "Everything you'll need to know." He placed the folders on his desk. "I've been working with my lawyers to make sure it's all in order." "Stop it," I said, my voice rising. "I don't want to talk about this." "Lucy." He took my hands. "We have to. I promised to protect you, remember? This is part of that promise." For the next few hours, he walked me through everything: the businesses he owned, the investments that generated income, the charities he supported. My head spun with numbers and legal terms. "It's too much," I whispered. "I can't learn all this." "You don't need to memorize it. You just need to know where to find the information and who to trust." He slid a list toward me. "These are the people who will help you: my lawyer, my financial advisor, my most trusted executives." "Why are you doing this now?" His eyes met mine. "Because I had another episode last night while you were sleeping. Because the doctors say the treatments aren't working as well as they hoped." My world collapsed in that moment. I'd known this was coming, but hearing it made it real. "How long?" I asked, the same question I'd asked months before. This time, his answer was different. "Months, not years." I tried to be strong like I'd promised Mom. I tried to make every day count. We spent hours in the garden when Robert felt well enough. We listened to his favorite music. I read to him when his eyes were too tired to focus. But each day, he slipped a little further away. The wheelchair appeared first, then the hospital bed in our room, then the nurses who came around the clock. On a clear December morning, 7 months after our wedding, I woke to find Robert watching me, his eyes bright despite his gaunt face. "You're staring," I said, trying to smile. "Just memorizing." His voice was barely a whisper now. "I want to take you with me." "Don't talk like that." I adjusted his pillows. "The doctor's coming today. Maybe he'll have good news." Robert shook his head slightly. "Lucy, my darling girl, promise me something. Anything. Live a full life? Use what I've left you to do good, but don't forget to find joy too." "I'll only find joy if you get better," I said, tears spilling down my cheeks. He lifted his hand with effort, touching my face. "You found it before me. You'll find it again." That evening, as the sun set over San Francisco Bay, Robert drew his last breath, his hand in mine. Just like with Mom, I sat there long after, unwilling to let go, to make it real. The funeral was held at the estate, attended by hundreds: business associates, society figures, politicians. I sat in the front row, numb, as speakers praised Robert's business acumen, his philanthropy, his character. None of them mentioned how he hummed off-key when he gardened, or how he always dog-eared book pages despite having countless bookmarks, or how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed. Rebecca sat across the aisle, her face a perfect mask of grief, accepting condolences as though she were the widow, not me. 3 days after the funeral, Robert's lawyer, Mr. Patterson, gathered everyone in the library for the reading of the will. Rebecca sat ramrod straight, flanked by her own attorneys. "This won't take long," Mr. Patterson began. "Mr. Thornton's will is quite straightforward." As he read, the room grew tense. Robert had left everything: Harrison Estate, his business holdings, investments, art collections, everything to me, with specific instructions for charitable donations and a modest trust for Rebecca's children. Rebecca shot to her feet. "This is outrageous! She manipulated him when he was ill. She took advantage." "Rebecca," Mr. Patterson interrupted, "your uncle's will was updated and notarized well before his health declined significantly. He was of sound mind and body." "I'll contest it," she hissed, glaring at me. "She seduced a sick old man for his money. No court will let this stand." After everyone left, I wandered through the empty house, feeling more alone than I ever had. Without Robert, Harrison Estate felt like a museum, beautiful but cold. In the following weeks, Rebecca made good on her threat. The headlines returned. "Widow Thornton faces will contest. Niece claims undue influence. Fortune in limbo as family feuds." I tried to focus on what Robert had taught me. I met with his executives, reviewed reports, signed documents. But at night, alone in our bed, grief would overwhelm me. One evening, Mrs. Winters brought me a stack of newspapers. "You should see these, Mrs. Thornton." Rebecca had taken her fight public, giving interviews painting me as a calculating gold digger who had isolated Robert from his family. "My uncle was a brilliant businessman but vulnerable to manipulation," she told one reporter. "This woman worked her way into his life when he was at his weakest. Public opinion seemed to side with her. Old photos of me in my housekeeper's uniform were printed alongside shots of me in the jewelry and clothes Robert had given me. The contrast presented as evidence of my transformation. When I went into the city, I'd catch people staring, whispering. Former friends of Robert's crossed the street to avoid me. The grief of losing him was hard enough. The isolation made it unbearable. 6 months after Robert's death, Mr. Patterson called with news. "The court has dismissed Rebecca's challenge. The will stands." "Thank you," I said, feeling hollow despite the victory. "There's more," he continued. "I've received concerning reports about Thornton Industries. Rebecca's position as regional director has allowed her to make decisions that appear questionable. The East Coast operations are showing significant losses. Can she do that? Damage the company. Her position gives her considerable authority in her division. As the majority shareholder, you could remove her, but it would be messy." I thought of Robert's pride in the company his grandfather had founded. Let me think about it. That night, I sat in Robert's office, surrounded by the folders he'd shown me before he died. Inside one labeled Thornton Industries History was a photo album. Pictures of Robert's grandfather breaking ground on the first factory, Robert's father shaking hands with employees, Robert himself, younger and dark-haired, standing proudly with workers at a factory opening. "What would you do?" I asked the empty room. "How do I protect what you built?" 1 year after Robert's death, I received an urgent call from David Chen, the CFO of Thornton Industries. "Mrs. Thornton, I think you need to come to New York. There's a situation developing that requires your attention." 2 days later, I sat in the Thornton Industries boardroom as David laid out the crisis. Rebecca's management of the East Coast division had been disastrous. She'd invested heavily in failing ventures, ignored warning signs, and alienated key clients. "The New York operation is on the verge of bankruptcy," David explained, pointing to charts showing plummeting revenues. "And if it goes under, it could drag the entire company down." "How many employees would be affected?" I asked. "In New York alone, nearly 500. If it impacts the whole company, closer to 2,000. 500 families. 2,000 lives upended because of Rebecca's poor decisions." "Where is she now?" "That's the other problem," David said grimly. "She's been mostly absent the past month. Word is she's in Europe at some spa retreat." Anger flared inside me. While she was being pampered, hundreds of people might lose their livelihoods. "I want a full audit," I said, "and schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow." That evening, alone in Robert's New York apartment, I called Mrs. Winters back in San Francisco. "The situation is worse than we thought," I told her. "What will you do?" "What Robert would do. Try to save the company and the jobs." The next morning, as I entered Thornton Tower, employees watched me curiously. Most had never seen the widow in person, only in tabloid photos. I held my head high, remembering Robert's words, "You belong anywhere you choose to be." The boardroom was packed. executives, lawyers, financial advisors. I took the seat at the head of the table, Robert's seat, and called the meeting to order. For 3 hours, we dissected the crisis. Rebecca had approved a series of risky investments against the advice of her team. She'd alienated a major client by missing meetings. Most recently, she'd authorized a product line expansion that was hemorrhaging money. We have 2 options, the lead attorney explained: file for bankruptcy protection for the East Coast Division, or inject significant capital to restructure. How significant? I asked. At least $50 million. The room fell silent. Even for Thornton Industries, that was a substantial sum. That would mean liquidating some of Mrs. Thornton's personal assets, David said carefully. I thought of the art collections, the real estate holdings, the investments Robert had left me. He'd wanted me secure, comfortable, but he'd also loved this company and the people who worked for it. Draw up the papers, I said. I'll provide the capital. 3 days later, I was reviewing restructuring plans when my assistant knocked on the door. Mrs. Thornton, Rebecca Blackwell is here. She's insisting on seeing you. I took a deep breath. Send her in. Rebecca looked different, less polished, more frantic. Her designer outfit couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the tension in her face. What's going on? She demanded, and I just flew back to find my office locked and my team reporting to new management. Sit down, Rebecca. I will not sit down. This is my division, my company. It's not your company, I said quietly. It never was. And your division is on the brink of collapse because of your decisions. She paled. That's not true. We had some setbacks, but the quarterly losses were hidden in the reports you sent to headquarters. The Westfield contract is gone. The Brighton expansion is failing. I slid the audit results across the desk. It's all here. For the first time since I'd known her, Rebecca seemed speechless. She scanned the papers, her hands shaking slightly. This can't be right, she whispered. It is. And now 2,000 jobs are at risk. She looked up, her composure cracking. What are you going to do? I'm investing personal funds to save the company. Your role as regional director is terminated, effective immediately. You can't do that. The board voted unanimously this morning. She stood, rage and fear battling in her expression. You've wanted this from the beginning, to humiliate me, to take everything that should have been mine. This isn't about you or me, Rebecca. It's about the families who depend on this company for their livelihoods. Don't pretend you care about the workers. You're just protecting your inheritance. I met her gaze steadily. Think what you want, but those people won't lose their jobs because of your mistakes. She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. Then she stopped, her shoulders slumping. When she turned back, her voice was different, smaller, less certain. What am I supposed to do now? For the first time, I saw beyond her perfect facade to the scared woman underneath. Rebecca had built her identity around being a Thornton, around her position in the company and society. Without that, who was she? I don't know, I answered honestly. That's for you to figure out. 2 weeks later, with the restructuring plan in place and new management installed, I prepared to return to San Francisco. David Chen walked me to my car. The team is impressed, he said. Not many people would invest their own fortune to save a company. It wasn't just my fortune, it was Robert's legacy. Still, you could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. I thought of the factory workers I'd met, the office staff, the families behind each employee badge. I would have blamed me. As the car pulled away from Thornton Tower, my phone rang. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Thornton? It's Rebecca. Her voice sounded different, humbled, maybe even afraid. What can I do for you, Rebecca? A long pause. I need to see you, please. It's important. We met at a small cafe far from Thornton Tower. Rebecca was already there when I arrived, nervously shredding a napkin. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. What's this about? She took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking about Uncle Robert, about the company, about how I've behaved. She looked down at her hands. I was wrong. About everything. I waited, surprised by her words, but wary of their sincerity. The company is my family's legacy too, she continued. I can't bear to see it dismantled or sold off. But I know I can't run it. I've proven that. What are you asking, Rebecca? Her eyes met mine, pride warring with desperation. I'm asking for your help. Not for me, but for all the people who depend on Thornton Industries. Let me be part of saving it. Why should I trust you? After everything you've done. Because despite what you think, I loved my uncle. And because I have nowhere else to go. Her voice cracked. Please, Lucy. I'm asking for a chance to make this right. Looking at her across the table, the woman who had tried to destroy me, who had contested Robert's will, who had nearly ruined his company, I should have felt triumph, or at least satisfaction. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Compassion. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's all I can promise for now. As I left the cafe, I realized something had shifted. For the first time since Robert's death, I wasn't just reacting to crisis or loss. I was making choices about the future, his legacy, and perhaps my own. 6 months after our meeting in the cafe, Rebecca stood beside me at the podium, facing a room full of reporters. The banner behind us read, Thornton Foundation announces educational initiative. As many of you know, I began, Thornton Industries faced significant challenges last year. Today, I'm pleased to announce not only has the company stabilized, but we're launching a new chapter in the Thornton legacy. I outlined the plan, a $100 million commitment to create educational opportunities for underprivileged youth, including college scholarships, vocational training, and early childhood programs. And now, I said, Rebecca Thornton would like to say a few words. She stepped forward, visibly nervous, but determined. A year ago, my poor decisions nearly destroyed my family's company and the livelihoods of thousands. My ego and sense of entitlement clouded my judgment. She paused, her voice steady despite the admission. It took losing everything to understand what truly matters. I'm grateful to Lucy Thornton for seeing potential in me that I couldn't see in myself. As she continued, I reflected on our unlikely partnership. After our cafe meeting, I'd offered Rebecca a position with the newly formed Thornton Foundation, not running it, but contributing her connections and knowledge of the family history. It was a chance for redemption, with clear oversight and limited authority. To my surprise, she'd embraced the role with humility and growing passion. The woman who once mocked my background now accompanied me to community centers in struggling neighborhoods. The socialite who had dismissed me as a gold digger now advocated for educational equity. After the press conference, we walked back to the office together. You didn't have to let me speak today, Rebecca said. It was your idea as much as mine. You deserve to be there. She shook her head, smiling slightly. My Uncle Robert would be proud of you. I think he'd be proud of both of us. 2 years after Robert's death, on a bright spring morning, I stood outside a renovated warehouse in Oakland. The sign above the entrance read, Robert Thornton Community Center. Children and families gathered for the grand opening, along with city officials and community leaders. As I cut the ribbon, I thought of how far I'd come from that little house in Oak Ridge, not just in distance or wealth, but in purpose. Inside, the center hummed with activity. Computer labs where teens would learn coding skills, classrooms for GED preparation and English language courses, daycare facilities so parents could attend classes, a health clinic offering free services to the neighborhood. Mrs. Winters appeared at my side, smiling more freely than she had in the early days. He would have loved this, she said. I think he does, I replied. Somewhere. That evening, I hosted a small reception at Harrison Estate, now my home in a way it hadn't been before. The guests included not just business associates and foundation staff, but community organizers, teachers, and students who would benefit from our programs. As I moved through the rooms where I had once dusted and polished, I caught snippets of conversation about the new initiatives, the lives being changed. The same society people who had once whispered about my background now sought my approval, my investment in their causes. Rebecca approached with an elderly couple. Lucy, have you met Judge and Mrs. Harrington? They're interested in supporting our scholarship program. Mrs. Harrington clasped my hand. We attended several events here when Catherine was alive. It's wonderful to see the estate filled with purpose again. Later, after the guests had gone, I walked through the quiet gardens. The roses Robert had loved were in full bloom, their scent filling the evening air. I sat on our favorite bench, where we'd talked about books and ideas and the future. I'm doing my best, I told the empty space beside me. I hope it's enough. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead, and for a moment, I felt less alone. The next morning, I woke early and drove to Oak Ridge. The trip I once made by bus now took just over an hour in Robert's my car. The little house looked smaller than I remembered, but someone had planted flowers in the front yard and painted the shutters. I'd kept my promise to Mom. After settling Robert's estate, I'd paid off the mortgage and set up a trust to maintain the property. Now a young single mother lived there, paying minimal rent while she finished nursing school. As I stood on the sidewalk, she came out with her little boy. "Mrs. Thornton, I didn't know you were coming today." "Just passing by, Jessica. How are your classes going?" Her face lit up. "I passed my certification exam. 2 more semesters and I'll be a registered nurse. Your mom would be so proud," I said, thinking of my own mother. I wouldn't have made it without your help. I watched them walk down the street, her son skipping beside her, and felt a sense of completion. This was what Robert had meant about using what he'd left me to do good but also finding joy. On the drive back to San Francisco, I thought about the strange journey that had brought me here. From a girl cleaning houses to survive, to a woman with the power to change lives. From being mocked for where I came from, to being sought out for what I could offer. The headlines these days were different. Thornton Foundation expands educational access. From housekeeper to philanthropist, Lucy Thornton's vision. Thornton Industries named top employer. As Harrison Estate came into view, I no longer saw it as an intimidating mansion but as a home, my home. The place where I'd found love, lost it, and then found purpose. The gates opened automatically, and as I drove up the long driveway, I remembered that first day, suitcase in hand, heart pounding with uncertainty. That scared girl from Oak Ridge still lived inside me. She was the one who understood the value of opportunity, the weight of judgment, the power of kindness. She was the reason I could now help others find their way. The staff greeted me at the door, no longer with the suspicion of my early days, but with genuine respect. Mrs. Winters handed me a folder, the final plans for the new learning center in Sacramento, and Mr. Chen called about the quarterly report. Thank you. I climbed the stairs to our office. On the desk sat a framed photo of Robert and me on our wedding day, both of us smiling in the garden. Beside it was a newer one, the ribbon cutting at the community center with Rebecca and me standing side by side. Outside the window, San Francisco sparkled in the afternoon sun. This view had once overwhelmed me with its grandeur and distance. Now I saw the neighborhoods where our programs operated, the schools where our scholarships sent students, the communities where lives were changing. I opened Robert's desk drawer and took out the book he'd first given me, the collection of short stories with the tale of the lighthouse keeper I'd loved so much. The note inside still read, "For your evening hours, R.T." I traced his handwriting with my finger, feeling not just grief now, but gratitude, for the chance he'd given me, for the love we'd shared, for the path he'd helped me find. "I keep my promises," I whispered to his memory. "A full life, good work, and yes, even joy." The phone rang, the foundation director with news about a new partner for our college program. As I answered, I looked again at the photo of Robert, knowing he would understand the best way to honor someone is not just to remember them, but to continue their work in the world. They once mocked me for where I came from. Now they seek my help. But the greatest victory wasn't proving them wrong. It was finding purpose in the journey and staying true to who I was all along. Touched by my story? Like and comment with the moment that resonated most with you. Subscribe for more stories like mine. Share with a friend who needs inspiration. Don't miss the next video.